Yo, 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 what is going on? It's ya boy, Shawnee Sean. And today was day 2 of NFL free agency, or at least the legal tampering period. The new year for the NFL has just begun, and players are getting new homes. It's pretty exciting. A lot of movement has continued today. Around this time last night, actually, I think it was closer to 1 o'clock at midnight. The Vikings signed Sam Darnold to a 1 year deal. Very much a prove it deal for him. So we'll see how he does, or if they add another quarterback. I've heard that they have some interest in Trey Lance as well. But the Vikings lose Kirk Cousins to the Falcons, and I guess are replacing him with Sam Darnold. Does not sound like they are interested in Justin Fields. So maybe Kyle Shanahan resurrected Sam Darnold the 1 year that he was in San Fran, but we'll see how he does in Minnesota. I've also, um, yeah, I don't know. Maybe they draft a guy too. Aaron Jones signs with the Packer or former Aaron Jones, former Packers running back, signs with the division rival with the Minnesota Vikings. Pretty surprised that he got released, although he was due about $17 million in the cap, which was very too much for a running back, especially of his age and caliber. So they get him at a discount in Minnesota, where he will play Green Bay twice a year. So Green Bay gets the new running back in Josh Jacobs, and Minnesota gets their new running back in Aaron Jones. Not a bad move, but nothing too special for Minnesota. And speaking of Minnesota, it sounds like they've been negotiating contract extensions with Justin Jefferson, and they haven't necessarily been going so well. And I've also heard that T. Higgins requested a trade, so it wouldn't be so surprising if they tried to do a sign and trade type deal with both of those guys involved. I know that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase would love to play with their college teammate in Justin Jefferson and bring him to Cincinnati. So that would be a dream come true for Bengals fans. And definitely getting something out of T. Higgins. And same thing for Minnesota. They would eventually essentially be getting, not quite as good of a wide receiver, but still a great wide receiver to add to their corpse. T. Higgins and Jordan Addison would be a pretty cool combo. And then King Henry, Derrick Henry, signs with the Baltimore Ravens, a 2 year, $16 million deal, 9 guaranteed. This is very exciting and should be pretty awesome for the Baltimore run game. It's pretty scary to really imagine a backfield with two Heisman winners in Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, although they did have that with Mark Ingram back in the day. But I think Derrick Henry really is a different beast and can really scare the living days out of opposing defenses. And speaking of the Ravens and their defense, they lose a linebacker today in Patrick Queen, and he actually goes to a division rival in the Pittsburgh Steelers. Patrick Queen's definitely one of my favorite linebackers in the league right now. Really, really good. Just, just the Eagles haven't had a good linebacker in a couple of years, so I've just relished that linebackers in every year's draft for the past few years. Just thinking that maybe this will be the year that the Eagles will take one, and obviously it won't be. But speaking of, I guess, the Eagles and linebackers, I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles went after Jeremiah Trotter Jr. In the second round. He is, I think, by consensus, like a top 5 linebacker in this year's draft. His dad played for the Philadelphia Eagles, and linebacker is just a position of need, so it really just seems like a home run there. But moving on, the Falcons give Kirk Cousins another weapon on offense in Darnell Mooney. Mooney gets a 3 year, $39 million deal. Definitely a nice piece to complement Drake London and Kyle Pitts. Bijan Robinson should have a nice, uh, they have an outside speed threat, which should take the top off of some of the defense. And, Atlanta plays in a dome, so, Kirk Cousins really likes to air it out, especially in a dome. So we'll see how he does there with Darnell Mooney, or vice versa with Kirk Cousins. Anyway, the Texans bolster their pass rush with Danielle Hunter, agreed to a 2-year, $49 million deal. 48 is pretty much guaranteed, so not too many incentives left, but a huge monster contract for Danielle Hunter. And the Texans are really actually starting to build something pretty nice. They have, sorry, they have Anderson on one side, and now they have Danielle Hunter on the other. And then on offense, they've been quietly making some sneaky moves as well. So keep your eye on CJ Stroud and the Texans continuing to improve. As far as the quarterback market, there have been a lot of backups that signed today. Gardner Minshew is with the Raiders on a 2-year deal. Jacoby Brissett is going to the Patriots, most likely as a bridge quarterback, although he might be a starter for a little bit, depending on who they get in the draft. Jameis Winston signs with the Browns on a 1-year deal to back up Jameis, or not Jameis Winston, Deshaun Watson. Joe Flacco's still a free agent, still pretty old. Sam Darnold, like I said, signs a 1-year deal with the Vikings. Tyrod Taylor signs a 2-year deal with the Jets. Drew Lock signs a 1-year deal with the Giants. Drew Lock might actually start a couple games. Daniel Jones probably will still miss the first few games of the season. And Drew Lock's actually a pretty capable guy who went 1-1 this season as a starter, beat the Eagles. So pretty embarrassing for the Eagles in that regard. Mason Rudolph, Carson Wentz, Trevor Siemian are all free agents. The quarterback market is not that good anymore. The best option is probably Justin Fields. So we'll see what teams want to do as far as compensation, and if he is going to get a starter or job or have to earn his role. But we'll see. As far as the running backs market has still been pretty good this year in free agency. Last year, a lot of the running backs had to hold out, and this year they are actually cashing in. So congrats to Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs, especially for holding out last year, dealing with the franchise tag, and cashing in this year. Derrick Henry gets a nice bag and signs with the Ravens, like I mentioned. Aaron Jones goes to the rival. Pretty snap decision. I mean, you play for the Packers for your entire career, and then you just flip on a switch. I mean, I guess that's what you could say with Saquon and the Giants, but I think Saquon and the Giants was a little different considering they had every opportunity to pay Saquon. And last year they chose Daniel Jones over Saquon. So Saquon stuck it to him and scored 2 touchdowns against the Eagles as in their last game as a Giant. So, um, the Giants just honestly shouldn't have ever really drafted Saquon in the first place. But that's a discussion for another day. As far as other former NFC East running backs, Ezekiel Elliott is still a free agent. So is AJ Dillon, along with pretty much all the Vikings former running backs. So we'll keep our eyes posted on where some of those guys land. But for the most part, it looks like the running back market has tapped out. As far as wide receivers, Calvin Ridley's definitely the best guy available right now. I've heard that he's been in heavy conversations with the Patriots and the Jags. The Patriots are most likely offering him more money, but the Jaguars are the team that he's been with. They just added another wide receiver, so it would help take a little pressure off him when they signed Gabe Davis. So we'll see if Calvin Ridley chooses between those two or winds up somewhere else. But right now, I've heard that the Patriots and Jags are the leading two spots for Calvin Ridley. Um, so we'll see what happens there. OBJ is still available too. Pretty good free agent. Still got some in the tank, even though he's getting there a little bit in age. I think he's what, ninth, 10th season in the league. Marquise Brown, fast wide receiver from the, I guess, Arizona Cardinals. I think he also played for the Ravens. So Michael Thomas, sort of shell of himself, but he's still out there. Tyler Boyd, if you need a nice slot guy, he's definitely someone to consider. MVS is still there. Mecole Hardman, and then just a bunch of lesser guys that don't necessarily need to be picked up immediately. So it looks like a majority of the free agents have been picked up, at least as far as the skill positions. Tight ends, Logan Tomlins, no, Logan Thomas is still available. Mike Gesicki signed with the Bengals on a 1-year deal, so it'll be interesting to see if he gritties with Jamar Chase, or learns how to gritty, and especially with the rumor that I had, if the Bengals trade for Jay Jettas, that'd be pretty exciting. So many gritties on the Bengals sidelines if that happened. Jonnu Smith signs a 2-year deal with the Dolphins. Zach Ertz with the Commanders for a 1-year deal. Some offensive linemen get picked up. I'm not really going to get into that, though. Connor Williams is still available, though. Chase Young, Jadeveon Clowney, pass rushers, Emmanuel Ogba are still available. So stay tuned for those. I've heard a lot of teams have, I guess, lessened on Chase Young. This guy's the former #1 overall pick. But apparently his motor just hasn't necessarily been there, or at least there have been questions with him. He's taken some plays off. Still looked pretty good with the 49ers. Made it to the Super Bowl. Clearly, that's not all on him, but it definitely was sort of a difference maker for them. But Jadeveon Clowney, similar situation, a little older. Kyle Van Noy, Yannick Ngakoue, both out there as well. But that's pretty much it. Calais Campbell's getting up there in age. Eric Armstead is still available. What else happened? Linebacker Bobby Wagner is out there. Devin White, for what it's worth. Bobby Wagner's got a lot older and clearly is not going back to the Seahawks. So curious to see where he lands. He still wants to play. Devin White, similar situation, still wants to play. Doesn't sound like he's going to go back to the Bucs. So a team that needs a linebacker could be interested in them. Isaiah Simmons is out there. Personally, one of my favorite guys out there, available as far as one of the linebackers. Eric Kendricks as well. Would like to see if the Eagles would consider one of those guys, or even bringing back Zach Cunningham. That'd be pretty exciting. Cornerbacks, not really that much out there. Stephon Gilmore, but he's getting up there in age. Same thing with Xavier Howard, also getting up there in age. Chidobe Awuzie signs a 3-year deal with the Titans. I like him. I think he's a little underrated. Guy from Colorado. Ronald Darby still in the league, signs a 2-year deal with the Jags. Didn't hear about that. Jeff Okudah signs a 1-year deal with the Texans. That should be very exciting. Him and Singletary could make for a very nice secondary, and quarterback tandem. Patrick Peterson and Marcus Peters are out there. Same thing with Avonte Maddox, but these are all just names at this point. Nothing too sexy. Safety, Justin Simmons is still there. He's definitely something to consider. Probably one of the best safeties and one of the best, highest profile safeties and free agents left available at this point. Pretty sure he led the league in interceptions about 2 years ago. Micah Hyde's still there. Von Bell, Jamal Adams. But that's pretty much it as far as the safeties. Rodney McLeod, former Eagle, like him. Nick Folk, if you're interested in a kicker, but pretty much all other kickers and most other special teams guys have just re-signed with all their teams. It seems like all these teams just want to really retain whoever they have, especially when it comes to the special teams skill positions, because it's hard to replace them, and if you have one, then you're usually pretty happy with the guy you got. Let's see if I've missed anything in between. But let me know what you guys think, or if there were any moves that you want to talk about in particular. I personally am a big fan of what the Eagles have been doing. They brought back CJ Gardner Johnson today. Um, Seems like they were just sort of in a crossroads in the negotiations last year, so we'll see how things go the second time around. Get him for 3 more years. Takes a 1 year deal with the Lions in between, and I'm pretty sure the Eagles actually offered him more last year, and even offered him more last year than he's getting in this next contract. Maybe not total, or I don't know their negotiations that they were going through, but in general, free agency window is pretty quick. Um, it's kind of funny that CJ was talking trash on Philly, and the fans said that he didn't really miss them so much, and now he's being welcomed back, most likely with open arms. So, welcome back, CJ GJ. We're happy to have you. Welcome, Saquon Barkley. They also got an offensive lineman, some guy Hennessy. Don't really know anything about him, so I'm sorry. Um, and they get a wide receiver, Devontae Parker, who was a first round pick a couple years ago, but has really fallen from that, and is basically a minimum receiver. Honestly, I don't expect much of an impact. The Eagles will very likely still draft or bring in another guy in free agency. A lot of guys that they've brought in at some point are still available, so they could probably get them on a cheap deal, like Quez Watkins, Olamide Zaccheaus, those types of guys. Not really difference makers, but depth to the position. Zach Pascal. I don't know if he's still out there. But as far as the um, Panthers, they made a trade today with the Steelers, and Bryce Young gets a weapon in Deontay Johnson. So pretty exciting for the Panthers. The fact that they get at least someone to catch some balls. Adam Thielen's clearly too old and was just not that much of a difference maker. And I like Jonathan Mingo, but was a rookie last year and put a lot on his shoulder and still learning how to play in the NFL. So we'll see how he does and develops going forward beside Deontay Johnson. And in Pittsburgh, that leaves pretty much my guy George Pickens alone in the wide receiver depth chart. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers took a wide receiver in this year's draft. The Steelers have a great track record of drafting and developing wide receivers, or at least having wide receivers look great in Steelers uniforms. So we'll see if they continue that trend going forward, but I expect them to take a receiver or two in this year's draft, and would love to see Russell Wilson and George Pickens connection take off. Although, that job's not given to Russ. He's still got to beat Kenny Pickett, and to some level, Kenny Pickett may have some advantages, the fact that he's been in the system. But at the same time, Russ is a Super Bowl champion, 9-time Pro Bowler, so definitely has more experience as a veteran. So that'll definitely be an exciting quarterback competition to watch this year. So stay tuned for that. But tomorrow kicks off day 3 of free agency, so stay tuned. It looks like I said a majority of the free agents have been picked up, but there are still a lot of good guys available. We went over most of them throughout this live, so I hope you enjoyed. And if you're on TikTok, check out the replay on YouTube. Follow me on all social medias. It really helps out the channel. Trying to pay some bills out here. But there's also been talk about Justin Fields potentially being a backup. I know the Eagles have shown some interest, and that'd be an awesome, incredible, super high end backup for the Eagles, but probably fits the scheme and system very well, similar to Jalen Hurts, as far as the scheme fit and type of player. So if you lost Jalen Hurts to a game or two, or even part of the season, and the Eagles went after a guy like Justin Fields, that could be very, very exciting. The Eagles have had a lot of success in backup quarterbacks um, with Nick Foles back in the day. So we'll see if history could repeat themselves. But first, they have to get a guy like Justin Fields, or the Eagles could also bring back a guy like Joe Flacco. He's been with the team, um, and still hasn't been picked up. But originally from Audubon, New Jersey, so comes home. Would be a nice reunion and set up for Flacco, the Audubon native, the University of Delaware Blue Hen. So stay tuned for Joe Flacco. Although maybe he sits out most of the year and just waits for whatever happened to the Browns this year. Because things actually worked out pretty well for Joe Flacco last year. But I don't know if he wants to do that all again. But that pretty much concludes what happened today in free agency. In some other news, Deebo Samuel is changing his number to number 1 and having Samuel Jr. on the back of his uh, jersey, I guess. And Patrick Mahomes renegotiates his contract to free up about $22 million in cap for the Chiefs to spend some money in free agency and try to get the three-peat. Oh, and I forgot to say some of the craziest NFL news that I almost totally forgot about. But the New York Jets quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, is on Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s shortlist to be the running mate for vice presidential candidate in November, which is just mind blowing. I mean, Robert F. Kennedy is Jr. is related to JFK. I think he's his great nephew or something, and is running for president as an independent candidate. And I guess he's been adding some traction. I think he's getting on the ballot in most states. So, congrats to him. But apparently is really anti-vax, and I guess to go with his anti-vax campaign, he wants Aaron Rodgers to be his running mate. And I don't know. I haven't heard anything about from Aaron Rodgers, but I haven't heard that he's shot it down. He might be considering it. He's had a total of 5 plays for the New York Jets. And his claim to fame as a New York Jet is really just waving the American flag on the field. So a hell of a 30 for 30 if he goes from Hall of Fame quarterback, honestly, and like 2-3 time MVP to vice presidential candidate. So stay tuned on Aaron Rodgers. Crazier things have happened, but I don't really think that there's that much credibility in this claim. Mostly just because Aaron Rodgers, is, taking darkness retreats and doing ayahuasca. I don't know if he's actually running for vice president. It seems like just crazy rumors. Maybe we're living in a simulation. Maybe it's all an episode of Black Mirror. I really have no idea. But I mean, would you vote for Aaron Rodgers? I feel like even like quarterbacks, he probably isn't my first presidential candidate. I mean, granted, I understand he's a great leader and he's won he's won a Super Bowl and just had a great career so far. But would you really vote for this guy? I mean, I don't know. I feel like I'd vote for Kirk Cousins ahead of Aaron Rodgers. That seems like a family man, well rounded, pretty smart. Probably like way too interested in like World War II. Um, Now I'm selling myself. We should get Kirk Cousins to run for president. And I don't know why he was the first guy that I thought of. But you do have to be 35 to run for president, so I guess you have to be old enough. So sorry, Brock Purdy, or anyone really. Pretty much 90% of the quarterbacks, but Joe Flacco also not a bad candidate. Another fellow blue hen, we got a blue hen in the White House right now, so why not get Joe Flacco in there instead? Um, as far as my presidential and political beliefs, I have no idea. I'm independent, but I'd like to see whoever's younger be president, or in Congress. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about football. So I hope you liked my live. Hope you get your campaign ready. Maybe you're voting for Aaron Rodgers this season. I think a lot of people voted for Kanye West 4 years ago. So crazier things have happened, but I did not ever think that. I never expected Aaron Rodgers to be a vice presidential candidate. Um, but maybe he's just as qualified as Kamala, right? Kamala Harris or something. I don't know. Anyway, hope you enjoyed my live. Maybe we'll do more of these. That was day 2 of free agency. Stay tuned for more free agent signings. And yeah, go Birds. They add C.J. Gardner Johnson. They add Saquon Barkley. Things are looking pretty sunny in Philadelphia because Rob McElhenney knows it's always sunny in Philadelphia. And that concludes it. So get the music out.